Wait, this video is for converting to standard form, which in essence is completing the square. So it's kind of a combination. I'll talk about completing the square specifically, but also we want to include things about the conic sections. So let's dive right in. Question 1. So the example is given each equation, identify the conic section first, and then convert to standard form. So when you convert to standard form, that's the part where we have to use the general form that we're given and complete the square. And by doing that, we end up in general form. So first thing we got to do is identify what are we working with. So number 9, if you look at number 9, we have only an x squared term. There's no y squared term. So if that's true, and it is, then we have a parabola. Let me work on that. I'll just note it to the side here. But then we have to convert to standard form. So standard form of a parabola is as y equals x minus h squared, and so on. So, and honestly, you guys, if you forget any of those general forms or standard forms, what you want to do is just go look back through the rest of your packet here for identifying the key features of each of these. Let's do this. So let's start by completing our squares. So we only have one square to complete. We only have an x squared term. You'll see in right away number 10, and in fact the rest of these, we have to complete the square twice in one problem. So completing the square, the first step you always use or do in completing the square is you group all those x squared x terms together, and then you eventually, if you have y squared terms, you group the y squared and y terms together. But for us, it's kind of convenient. It's already been done for us. So our first step for us is going to be, if you remember, completing the square, we start by writing x squared minus 6x. And then before we continue on, the idea is we add half of the x term and square it. So we take half of this, which technically is -3, but -3, and we square that. So we're really adding 9 to this side. And then we just continue on, minus 2y plus 5 equals 0. But you got to be careful because we just did something to one side of an algebraic equation, but we didn't do it to the other. So whether you write out a new line or not, I'm not going to because I don't have a lot of room. Kind of in that same step, if we added 9 to the left side by taking half of the x term squared, we have to add that to the right side. Okay. At this point, we actually have, for a parabola, it's really simple. We already have what we need to complete our square. In completing the square, we just say x minus 3 squared. And that gets us all of this. That is now this section factored is x minus 3 quantity squared. And we can talk if you need assistance remembering how to write a perfect square trinomial like that. Please let me know. But for our purposes here, again, I'm going to move forward. So x minus 3 quantity squared, and then minus 2y plus 5, and that equals 9. At this point, what we want to do is start simplifying and get that y minus, technically it's y minus k, I believe, y minus k quantity squared, but, not squared, but we want to simplify, so we leave this alone, x minus 3 squared. I'll just do it as many steps as I can without running out of room here. I'll subtract 5 from both sides is what I'm doing, so that equals 4. In the end, we want y by itself. Y equals some x squared term. So we can add 2y to both sides. And then if we subtract 4 from both, we get had to do the step I said. If we want to put it in more traditional form, we have y on the left side, y equals something. So two things we got to do. I want to switch that y on the left on the right, but I also want to just divide by 2 on both sides so that we get y by itself. So if we do that, what we end up with is y equals x minus 3 squared all over, oh, I'm sorry, over 2, and then minus, well, 4 over 2 is just 2. But that is our traditional form. Rather than writing the whole numerator divided by 2, I did separate it out. So that is the, well, it's a conic section in standard form, but we also completed the square. Tell you what, I will do all these 9 through 12 as separate videos just to kind of keep them truncated, and that way you can just pick which video you want to watch if you need individual help on each one. So.